files. In order to work with files in Python, there is a very important function we need to work with. It's called the open function. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say file underscore equals to open. So open is a function. So if I move my cursor around the open, you see that it's a function. But this function has a file, so which is a file descriptor or path. So basically, you can provide the name of the file if the file is in the same path like your Python script, or you can say, for example, the path where the file is, and then the mood. The mood is: do you want to read? Do you want to write? Do you want to create? Do you want to write text or bytes? So depending on what you want to do, the encoding, the errors, new lines. So there are so many functions. And then these functions return something called a text IO wrapper. So it opens a file and return a stream. So this text IO wrapper is a stream that you can read from. So something that you could read from. So that's the stream. So it opens the file and return this text IO wrapper, which is a stream. So basically here you could see. So let's look at what the kind of let's look at what we will be able to pass inside here. For example, I could say file, and let's say my file is equals to abc.txt, and then my mood. So the default mood, if you don't pass a mood at all, the default mood is actually mood equals to R of t. So this, you see that there are different mood here. So there's this R of t. This is the default mode. That's when you don't provide a mood at all. And this R stands for read, while this T stands for text. So you could also read, for example, bytes. So it provides you the ability to work with both text and bytes. So for now, let's say we are reading text. So this is how it works. So we could look at this mode properly here. So let's go all the way down so that we see the different modes. So you see here, R is to open a file for reading. This is the default mode, just like I told you. W is to open the file for writing and truncating the file first. So assuming you had content in the file, it's going to truncate it. So X will create a new file and open it for writing. So this, if you want to create a new file, but one thing about this X is, for example, if you decide to run your code again, it will not append to the file. It will complain that file already exists, and you're going to run into an error. So the A here appends to an already existing file. So the B, just like I told you, that it works with both bytes and text. So if you put B, that means you're working on binary mode, but the default mode is the text mode. So the T, the plus sign is when you're opening a Dix file for updating. So U is actually deprecated. So the default mode, just like I told you, is the RT. So let's see what happens now. So the next step is we're going to try to read a file. So we're going to be trying to read the file. So let's see what we can do here. So let's say, for example, we actually have this file. So we're going to create this file here. So we're going to come here and create a file with this same name. So we're going to say hello and hey, you on each line. And let's see what happens here. So we have a function here to read from this file. So the way you do is that you say, for example, file, and then you provide an underscore, for example, and then you could do dot read. So this is how you read from the file. So this will read, and then you could assign this one to some very, like, let's say this will read your whole text. So this is going to read the whole text, and then you could print the whole text, and then you remember to close your file. So you have to close the file. Of course, you opened it. So these are the steps. You open, you read the text. So this function dot read the whole text, and then you're going to print the whole text, and then you're going to close the text. So this is how you do it. So let's see how this one works. So I'm going to execute here and look at what I have. I have hello, hey, you, all in one. So it happens all in a go. So let's see how we are going to use the another one called the read lines. So basically what this will do is that, so we're going to change this read to read lines. So let's see. So we're going to make it read lines. So what this will do is that it's going to return, this whole text will be a list. And this list is going to contain the first element of the list. Index will be hello. So let's see how it works in a moment. So we're going to, so let's see. So we're actually reading lines. So let me execute this again. So we had hello. So let me see what is happening here. So read lines. So we are using read line. So look at what happens. So we get the list here, the list of items. So read line read the first line, but read lines gave us the whole content of the file as a list. So you see what happens here. So that's how you work with the read line, and the read lines. So let's go to write. So in order for us to write, one of the things we could do is that, for example, I could use the X here. You could use WT. So you're writing text, of course. And then here you could decide to, for example, want to write to this file. So we could decide to create a new file here called AB. AB doesn't actually exist. So we need to provide the text that we need to write. So we need to come here and use the word write. And then, of course, we want to write like hello world to the text. So let's see what happens. So now we don't need to print because we're actually writing some file. So we write and then we close. Let's see whether the content of this hello world will be written to the file called ab.txt. So we execute this and look at what we get. So we get hello world. So if we decide to, for example, write this, I don't need to even assign this to any value. So if we decide to write this multiple times, all we need to do, so if we write it multiple times, it might all be in one line. So look at what will happen. So when we execute this, we go back to the file. You see, it's all written it in one line. So if we want to make sure that they are all written in separate line, we could decide to put the new line carrier here. So we do a /n here. So this will make sure that all our text is in a new line. So you could do it for all the lines. So when we go back to abc.text, ab.text, you see what's happening here. So everything is in a new line. So the next thing we're going to see is there's a function called, just like we have the read lines, we also have the write lines. So write lines also works like the read lines. So we could say, for example, file underscore dot write lines. So we could write lines. So what we could do here is that we provide a list to the write lines, and then it's going to write the content of all the items in this list to the file. So we're going to do it to ab.txt. So let's do this. So look at what is happening. Each time, look at what is happening to ab.txt. It's truncating the existing content and then writing some new content to the file. So this is how write and write lines work. So remember, we are always closing the file. Each time we open the file, we are always closing the file. So this is how read lines, write lines works. But in most cases, there's something called a context manager in Python. So if you look at some books, you'll see them write this same code. Let's look at this right. So let me say this one. So the way they will write this is that instead of, for example, just opening the file, they will use with. They will open a context here with with. So, and they will say with open this file for writing as, they will say, for example, file underscore. And then this will now be under the with. And then that's all they do. They don't close it again. So the context will handle the closing. So you just write it like this. So with this, it's also for readability. You see, it's easy for you to know that you are opening the file and there are so many operations that are under this open. And when you go out of this with, you know that the file has been closed. So this is what you will see. And this is kind of like the way you see it in most tutorials. But also it works if you decide to write it the other way around, where you create the file underscore to be equals to the open, and then you decide to perform the operation and close. So this is what you call a context. You are opening a context, and a context is basically saying that there are operations that are under this file that will be closed at the end. So it will clear out all the resources that was used within this after the open was done. So basically, this is how you want to write. You open your file, you do whatever operation you want to do, and you close. For example, now we could decide to, for example, use create another file, but this time around we pass in X. So we know what X will do. So X will create a new file and write some content to it. So look at it now. So it has created a new file, ABX, you see, and written the content to it. When we decide to execute it the second time when you use X, look at what happens. You see, we get file X is error. So if you are using X, you can't execute it twice, because when it happens, you're going to get this file exit error. So another thing is to use the append. So append, for example, now we already have the ABX, we have some files in it. So when we use the append mode, basically this append mode is something like the AT. So because you're appending text, so we can execute this now. So you see here, when we go to ABX, you see that more files have been appended to it. So this is how basically you work with files in the Python. So in the next video, we're going to be looking at object-oriented programming and some other concepts of the Python programming language. So thank you for listening, and do subscribe to this channel for more content like this.